All right, everyone. Um, Thank you for joining in. It's 8:05 right now, so we are going to start the space. Welcome to the second Glyn Spaces, where we have conversations about design that have not been had before or that help push the narrative. And today we'll be hosting Deji Ajetomobi, a fellow Arsenal fan who we all know as J Toms. Deji is a systems designer at Twice, and today he's going to be talking to us about the systems mindsets, how brand designers can design for the digital era. Deji has some peculiar takes on why or how brand designers should be designing, what we should be thinking about, what his experience has shown him from designing, from being a brand designer to um, designing systems for products, right? And so, Deji, the mic is yours. Kindly introduce yourself to the guests.
Hello everyone. To start with, I'd like to thank Paul, the director of like Glyn Studios, for inviting me to just see my just talk basically about design. Uh, I am DG. As we said, I've been designing for I think 7 to 8 years now, and basically I call myself a designer, which means like I wear quite like diverse lots of arts from strategy to art direction to brand design to um, product design and a little bit of motion here and there. And in the past years, I've worked with clientele spanning from the US, the UK, Canada, Australia, and now I work full time as a systems designer in the design systems team at Twice. So yeah, I love Aston as well. So that's a little bit about me.
Ah, I was muted. Thank you very much, Deji, for that introduction and upgunners. Can you guys hear Deji or I? Please just leave a thumbs if you can hear us. Okay, Deji, you can hear me. Elijah, Ibrahim, Gabis, Mirabella, can you guys hear? Okay, great. All right, thank you. All right, so Deji, the first question to you. So what is the systems mindset? How can brand designers or how should brand designers, be designing for product-led teams for to be designing in systems?
Uh, yeah. So, system mindset, it's about like thinking about the scalability and accessibility of whatever you're designing, and also like how it could be reused in other instances. And basically, it's having this mindset that whatever assets you are designing or whatever uh, layout you're designing has to like be able to has to be scalable basically, so as to like create a language, but also not just scalable but also like accessible in different parts of the product. And those two are like basically scalability and accessibility is one of like the important things a brand could have at the moment. But then looking to the future, having a system mindset is allowing what you've designed to be able to like evolve, because like brands evolve regularly. So having whatever you design to be able to like evolve, scale, and also being accessible to the audience your brand is like uh trying to target. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I think for most brand designers,
Mm,
systems will probably be like a buzzword now because everyone is always saying design in systems, scale the system, this or that. But what
mm,
does it really mean to think in systems, right? Like I think a lot of brand designers already figure out how to design a logo, how to pick colors, how to pick
Mhm.
type, to varying degrees. But how can they begin to think to systemize these things in a way whereby it could work from the marketing touch point to the digital touch point?
Yeah. One thing I'm glad like most brand designers do is about like thinking more about like the audience they're designing for. But the thing is, there are like some other how do I put it? There are some other behind the scenes whereby research doesn't touch when you are like doing your brand design, basically like the identity, such as the demographic. Is the company going to be global or is it going to be like local? You know, because having asking those like questions about like demographic, global or local, or all these things is going to allow you to like also think about accessibility. I'm going to say accessibility quite a lot over here because it's very important. Um, but also like thinking towards like a system mindset is basically like thinking past the direction what we currently do, which is create like another direction for a brand, and also like the feelings. Those are like two things we hold dear as brand designers. But now we have to start thinking about also like the usage of these assets. You know, not just like designing a bubble, not just designing to like it's going to be used for like marketing, or not just designing to be used for just an instance. Why not thinking about other instance? And also, another thing is thinking if those assets you are designing or like the brand you are designing could be able to like evolve without breaking the product. Basically, is maybe the logo or the colors you've chosen. How can it like evolve or basically copy it? How can they extract from it, evolve to create something new, but also still relevant to the brand? Um, so that's one way I think people can start like thinking in like system management, which is basically let's think past what's the name? Let's think past like the direction we've chosen. Okay, yeah, we've chosen this direction is nice, and the direction ties to the feeling of like the users or the audience in which the brand is looking to connect with. But also like the usage of these assets. What people are going to use these assets, what the designers and what are like how do I put it? What are the technologies they have to be able to like use these assets? You know, am I being am I designing something that's going to be very, very complex for a brand that just starting out? And they have really like how do I put it, they have no huge reason to maybe hire like five designers on their team. Actually, even one brand designer, I would say, in the Nigerian ecosystem. So it's basically like thinking about those things and tailoring your assets to like fit their needs at that moment, but also being able to like evolve in the future without breaking the product. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, to our listeners, please confirm if you can hear. I keep getting some messages that some people can hear
Oh,
certain things. Just give me a thumbs up if you can hear.
uh, can I hear you? Can I hear you?
Mm. I think only single people can hear me today, being Valentine.
Fair enough.
All right.
Awesome.
Okay. Okay. I can see more thumbs up. So I think again coming back to brand designers, would you say it was would you say you working at Wise um helped you shape this mindset, or was it a mindset you had before going into the company? Because what I wanted to know is
Mm.
what sparked this realization that when we design for brands, we need to look beyond the marketing. And I know a lot of the things we do focuses on the marketing touch point. How can we get
Mhm.
the brand from this point to this point for make people to see it
Mhm.
through these different touch points, right? But
Yeah.
I think one of the ones we don't do, or we do but not to a great extent, is designing for the product itself, right? So when did you get this realization that maybe it's designing for the present, designing for the future, but we need to think in those systems?
Yeah. I think to be precise, maybe it's 2021, I think, maybe 4 years ago. That's before I joined Wise.
Okay.
And it was basically chalking out all these like huge guidelines for like brands and everything. Oh, I've designed this brand, that this nice direction, illustrations and everything. And at the end of the day, Most of it is basically used for social media. Some of it is used on website. But when you look at the product, there is this dissonance between the product that is being designed and actually what is within the guideline or the direction you propose. And that like led me to like a rabbit hole to like, oh, okay, let me actually lay a bit more of like product design. Let me learn what it entails and everything. Let me understand it so that I could be able to like deliver what those designers need specifically, you know. And from there, that's where I was like, oh, okay, so I need to start like thinking in systems, how also I could deliver to marketing, but also deliver to the product itself. And I think that's where like the idea of like starting to design in systems as a brand designer just like came from. Yeah.
Yeah, great. So guys, that curiosity has led Deji through rabbit holes where now he's building Yes Chef, which is like a platform for you to learn how to cook anything via YouTube, but you just need to put in your details, put in whatever you want to cook, and it finds you the best video that can teach you. Um, and it's thinking the systems. I think it's something I've been able to see behind the scenes of the work, and I can see how he's been thinking about it in systems, basically. The one thing you mentioned in your realization is the brand guidelines you churn out. So, what would you say when you look at brand like the best brand guidelines today, even from the best studios and all, what would you say
Mm.
is the biggest gap between what you see in those brand guidelines, the way it is designed, or the way it is documented, right? Would you
Yeah.
say it encompasses what the brand should be across every touch point, or would you say it's more marketing geared?
Yeah. Nice. I would say now it's quite like evolving, but also still it is marketing heavy to to like an extent as well. And being marketing heavy is basically not seeing like loads of product systems thinking behind like within the guidelines itself, like this maybe no product mock-up. Even if you want to see like maybe something that's close to the product is basically like the website mock-up, and we just like makes you think, okay, this brand you designed, how does it translate into the product? That's why some I hold dearly. I'm not what's the name? I'm not advertising for them or propping them up. I know dearly some good design studios such as like Ragged Edge. They think loads about the product as well. So if you look at most of their case studies, you could see like some product mock-ups within it. And that's because they collaborate with like the designers within the company as well, or the designers the company is looking to bring in into the company as well. So like basically is like no I'm not having like not systemizing some things such as like typography, colors. One thing that I noticed daily is basically like, oh, people provide like the primary colors, secondary colors, they provide some tints. But if you actually look at it, are those tints actually useful? When you look at the product they currently have, are those tints useful? And when you look at the direction of the brand itself that was provided by meaning the branding agency or the brand designer, sometimes there's not even things in there, so it's like, okay, what's the use of the things then? You are just providing like, oh, let me just add things in there for just like things sake. So that's like just brings up like this question: is this thing actually useful? Is this thing going to break the product, or is it going to even like cause a dissonance between what's actually expected within the product from looking like at what is being marketed on their social media, or how it's been designed for like their posters or even their website? So yeah, basically.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for that. I think it's something I definitely have been guilty of in the past. Where we design and we, even if it's a product led company, we are not even involved, or I'm not even involved in the product side of the
Mhm.
identity. I'm just focused on the brand side, and you can whoever is in your team can translate that into the product. Which then brings me to this question: so, who really should build out the design system? Is it the brand designers? Is it the product designers, or should it be a collaboration between both sets of designers?
Definitely it's supposed to be a collaboration between both, but also it depends on like the involvement of the brand designer depends heavily on the like life cycle or where the product is currently. So if the product is starting out, the brand designer is going to like have more like say within the design system. But if the product is already like mature, the product designers are going to have more say. But Why I say it's a collaboration in the sense is basically where the brand designer can always come in is basically collaborates with the product to help like build out the foundations of the design systems. And basically the foundations are like the color tokens, the typography scale, the iconography is definitely what we do, but like building out those iconography sets or even giving them like concise guidelines of how to like build out all these iconographies, photography style, containers. So basically giving them all these building blocks that would then enable the product designers to be able to make components and patterns out of these foundations you're giving them. But the issue now, where I see is most brand designers design in isolation, you know, and designing in isolation, not collaborating with product team is basically you're just like assuming. You're assuming the colors they need. You're assuming the things they need. You're assuming like the even like the type of caption that is needed within the product, you know. And when the product designer sees that like, "Oh, this is basically not what we use, it's not accessible, it's either too big or too small for a body text," and it starts falling apart, and what the direction in which you provided might then start to break, basically. So it's usually like a collaboration between them, bringing the product designers in, also bringing like some marketing guys in to basically discuss how we are going to build out that foundation. And those foundations are basically the typography, colors, iconography, style, and guidance, the photography, and yeah, basically illustrations, if needed.
All right, great. Yeah, thanks for that. I think you've touched on certain points. But for a brand designer who does great brand design work, already designs for marketing teams, or his brand design is our brand design work is geared towards the marketing touch points. How do you
Yeah.
think they should start designing for product systems? Is it somewhat of a big shift from what they already do, or is this something they can easily transition into?
I mean, you have to learn a little bit about systems, but I think it's something you can easily transition into. But also, basically, and how to do that is to notice that the product keeps evolving. You know, how we could come in is when our products keep evolving. That is, um, maybe you see like a new color is being used regularly within maybe a new set of colors are regularly used within products. You know, you could review that, perform an audit, review that color. Is it really accessible? Bring it into either you bring it into the system or you refresh it. Basically, does it even look cool? You understand? You could say this
Yeah.
color doesn't look cool, and then like refresh it, put it into the system, create like help create color tokens. It's just to like know that it keeps evolving, and to like understand where it evolves is basically being in touch with product teams or the product design or the product itself. You know, not just like "Ah, yeah, I'm a brand designer. Basically, I'm just going to like do the marketing assets and I'm done. You know, but and why I'm quite focused on like for guys within like the digital space or the product space or in tech working as a brand designer is it's like it's also like how do I put it? It blows your impact basically because most like product heavy companies basically what brings the money is the product. You understand?
Yeah.
Marketing does like definitely they have to market. It does a huge shift, but with marketing it takes time. It's not easy to track. You know, but with products, yeah, like data analysis everywhere those changes in feelings, those changes in like action taking, they are easy to track basically. So it's like finding those faults or finding things that are evolving and trying to like systemize it. I think if you're already working, that's the way you could like get into like brand systems, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. So when you're shifting that mindset, from a physical touch point to a digital one, right? How
Mm.
do you ensure that you are maintaining brand integrity in what you're trying to do? Like when you're trying to create these systems with the product designers or with the engineers or the motion guys trying to create all the system, how do you ensure that
Yeah.
whatever you are creating from one end of the brand
Yeah.
easily translates to other hands, or you're not trying to make the product itself
Mm,
dictates what the brand should look like, right? So how
mm.
do you balance that integrity?
That's nice. I would say definitely like being like the first step is basically collaborating with the product teams and also like marketing teams. But where it comes into play, like flexibility or not like stifling product teams is like being clear about what you could be flexible on, you know, what you won't be flexible on basically. So like, oh, you've had this new direction for the brand and everything is going on well. There are some things such as like the display typography. Someone can just wake up and say, "Oh no, we are going to change it," or the product can just like, we are not feeling we want to change it. After it's been approved, it's like already sealed. So basically, that's you can't budge on that basically. But there are some things you could be flexible on, such as like the typography scale. When it comes to, like the body and everything, maybe it's not working, and they are trying to like make it more accessible. You have to like, oh yeah, what you guys are saying is quite right. So it's just being knowing what you could be flexible with and what you don't, and just like being clear about it, particularly in the design guidance. Because one thing I use is basically like don't and avoid. With don't is like do not do it and being clear on it. With avoid is there are still some room for you to kind of do it if you do it in a good way. If it's like allows the product to evolve, so like maybe something nice, whereby people like start adopting the products and start adopting here and there. But the don't are like do not do it unless it's going to break the product. So basically just being clear about where you want to be flexible and where you don't.
Okay. So in good, you mentioned your don'ts and avoid.
Avoid.
So do you think, I feel like that is a very thin line, right? Between the confusion between you shouldn't do this and okay, you should only do this if it works. How do you determine that it works, right? Why not just don't do it? And have you ever had a situation where you've set certain guidelines around how to use certain tokens and you've had a lot of pushback on that?
Uh, Definitely. So like why you can't just say like don't for everything is you have to understand that the direction you created for a product currently might not like be that same direction that will take you into like when you let's say when a product is basically starting out, it's new, they're still building their user base, basically maybe the local users are still using the product. But when it starts getting to like a million, 100 million user base, then someone might want to like change the color, maybe the color rate or something. It's not like speaking to it's speaking badly to a particular type of demographic. So trying to like change that in some way is like, oh, okay, there's room for flexibility in this when there is sense. So like putting add-ons on it is not going to allow for that room of like flexibility. It's not going to allow the product to evolve into like what it could be within the future, into like maybe the new vision for the product. And one thing I said earlier is like with systems, it's like you have to think about how whatever you are designing, whatever assets can like evolve into so that sorry, how you could like design all these assets to basically evolve so that the product doesn't break from the current direction. It's just like an evolved direction of what you've given them. Um, do you understand that? Exactly.
Yeah, I get. Thank you for that. And to piggyback on something you just said now about um, breaking the system. So, how are ways you've seen um the early iterations of the system created? How have you seen it break when the team is trying to scale?
Hmm. Um, it's mostly deals with I was, I mostly deals with like typography, I would say, because when you're starting, you've chosen like maybe this quirky sans serif that looks freaking cool. It's being used as your body text and everything, but deep down it's not really accessible. And accessibility is not only being, oh, can it be seen on smaller size, but also accessibility is, can it be translated to some languages that is needed for like a global brand, basically. So let's say your brand launches in Japan or in China or in um, Saudi Arabia. So basically, can it be translated to Arabic? Can it be translated to like Japanese without breaking? So in that instance, I think you have to like try basically that's what causes rebrand most of the time. But in that instance, it's going to like start breaking the product. So whenever you're like that's why I used to say whenever you're like designing at the start, it's basically like, okay, what's the vision of this thing? How big is it going to be, basically? And where are those routes you are looking to go into? How global are you looking to go? So basically choosing the right like assets that are going to cater for that need without doing this revision all over in the future.
Yeah. So if someone was to create the very first version of a brand system or a digital system today, how long do you reckon that is going to take?
I mean, it's going to take a lifetime, obviously, because the thing is, like I said, product keeps evolving. New components are coming in. People are like adding things to the product. Basically, it's just the way like you want to create a factory, and with the factory comes maybe new products, maybe new biscuits, and you have to design like another sub factory for it because the current factory. So it's basically like features as well within the product. So designing new features might call for new components, and those new components might call for maybe it's also like new background color or assets, basically. Like for instance, there was a project I was working on whereby we've given them the assets. We have like this illustration system and everything, and they were looking to create like an asset for the Chinese in Bao. I don't know, sorry. The Chinese New Year, yeah. The Chinese New Year celebration. And they needed that asset. So basically, it has to be added to the system. And so basically features keep coming in with new features that comes in with also like new designers are coming because designers there are different tastes among like designers across, So they come with their own taste, they come with their own style, even though they are using the system, but there are some components or maybe some background colors or assets that are not working for them for that feature they are building. So they have to break out of the system. And once they're breaking out of the system and actually looks good and product teams that start picking it up and reusing it, then you have to start thinking, okay, should we add this thing to the system? Since like I mean it's working already. That's where you start like adding. So it's a continuous process. But the first to build the first version is I mean it's going to take quite a while basically. Like 6 months if you know what you're doing.
So if you are building a system, so let's you mentioned rebrands earlier, right? That maybe when some things don't scale, that is
Yeah.
where calls for rebrand may come up. So in the case of a rebrand and you have the goal of building a system at hand, where do you think that conversation should start coming up? At the beginning of the rebrand, or when the rebrand has been defined to a certain point, and then you can start evolving that into the system?
Sorry, can you come again?
Yeah, so I was asking if so in terms of building a design system and in the context
Yeah.
of a rebrand, right? So you found out that you're trying to build one, it's broken, right? And
Mhm.
now you felt like a rebrand is going to solve that for you to be able to accommodate for a lot of the things that your previous system doesn't
Yeah.
have, right? So, when do you think the conversation about starting to build the design system comes up in the rebrand? Would it be from the beginning, or would it be after the brand itself? The logo, the colors,
Mm.
and those foundations have been set, and then the design system can come into place. Where do you think it falls in the planning then?
I mean, say there are like two faces to this. It's like okay, we are a brand, we have a design system, but we want to rebrand. So basically, it's just updating all those things in the design system because the first order is even allowing the stakeholders, as in the C-suites within the company, to understand the need of the design system. And once they understand that, it's basically then just like once they've understood that and you have a design system, going to rebrand is like I mean it's quite easy depending on the scale of the direction, how the direction like is dissonant to what you currently have. So it's just been updating that design system. But if you don't and you you want to have within the product. So you also have to like think, do my product actually need a design system? Because every product doesn't really need a design system. Some needs like basic UI kits, some need like basic guidance that would help them. But like when you're going global, when you and also the design system is not really about design. It's about like it's most like design effort and also engineering effort together as well with product. I see. So thinking of like introducing design system, you have to like get like the approval from the C-suite definitely. But where it comes in is basically during the beginning stages of the brand. You understand,
Yeah.
and you have to like you also have to start doing the work basically because you're going to be working. If you are the brand designer, oh, perfect. Basically, just start performing an audit. Start performing an audit. That's if you don't have a design system. Start performing an audit of like the product, of the things that are like dissonance within the product, the different directions within that product. And making it like seeing the disadvantages of having different direction within the product and how you can systemize it. That is going to give you like a buy-in, which then allow you to like build a system during the rebrand.
Okay, great. So one thing you mentioned earlier, and we touched on, was your don't and avoid, right?
Yeah.
And my assumption is when you are building a design system, you should allow certain degrees of flexibility within the system, right?
That's
So on one hand, you have strict and loose guidelines for people, for the product designers and the engineers to adhere to. On the other
yeah.
hand, you have flexibility, right? So
Yeah.
in this conundrum, how do you protect the brand? Whereby your strict rules are not so rigid that they are bypassed at the end of the day, and your flexibility are not so loose that things are introduced without proper guidance into, do they fit the system or do they work within the system. So how do you protect the brand in that instance?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's the thing is you another thing is you want to protect the brand, but also you want the brand to evolve. You
Yeah.
don't want to stifle designers' creativity because of your design system. You understand? Oh, I've designed this thing. I've designed some guidance towards this thing, and you must use it. That's basically you're telling them, and basically you're stifling the creativity of the designer, and it's going to lead to like loads of spiraling and people just breaking out of the design system and they don't want to use it. You have to start building again. So it's basically again being clear on like, okay, what can I say? Hey, I'm going to be flexible on, and what you could be flexible on, are things you think they don't really break the direction of they don't really break the direction or like the integrity of the brand. You understand? Why the things you can't be flexible on are those important things that you feel, oh, okay, this is going to break the direction and the integrity of the brand. Like the example I gave, maybe you have a display typography, you have like this specific type of typography, maybe it's serif or something, which can be used in like displays, used in marketing. Someone can just say, I want to change it. Yeah, you understand?
Yeah.
Someone can just come, oh, I want to change it. And in the light of being flexible, oh yeah, yeah, go and change it. No, definitely not. You understand? So, and also like maybe the primary color as well. You can't just wake up and say, oh, I want to change the tint. It's not giving. So all those ones you have to like, they are very important to the brand. Is built what's the name? Is built some, what do we call it? It's built some like equity for the brand basically. And you don't want to break that. So those are some things you can't be flexible on. But some things you can be flexible on. Okay, we want to update this component to have like this background color. We want to introduce a new type of color that's going to adhere to this thing. You review that color. Does it work? Does it work with other colors you have within the system? Then you can introduce it. Or I want to introduce a new typographic scale because basically it's not working in these instances. You could think about it, then you could introduce those things. Because typographic scale, all those, they don't really like have loads of like effect on within the brand equity or integrity of the within the integrity and equity of the brand. So you can allow flexibility for that, basically.
Okay, great. So if I hear you correctly, it's more like the components, you can be rigid with the components because
Yes.
you shouldn't change that. But the characteristics of certain elements of that component, there could be more
Yeah,
flexibility with them. Right?
100%. Yeah.
Great. So for somebody new to design systems, what would you say are those components that make up the design system?
Uh, so basically, I'm just going to there are like categories, how you say. So basically, you have your foundation, you have your strategy to start with, and your strategy is basically your brand strategy. You know, your mission, your vision, your values, your proposition, your audience, uh, your marketing analysis, this and that, your tone of voice, your tagline. You know, your messaging guide. Basically, you have your strategy. Then you have your foundations. So your foundations are your typography, your color, your patterns, your illustrations, your icons, those little things that could be able to like build up components. And then you have your components, which are basically the building blocks of like the product itself. So maybe like a list item, like a card, um, uh, like uh, like a radio button, a checkbox button, all those things that like build the product. Then you have your patterns, because the patterns are like pages or like blocks of components that could, or like templates basically, that could just be lifted and placed. So those are like the, is it four or five? Yeah, five main like things that make up a design system.
Okay. So in all of this, right?
Yeah.
What stops a team to say, "Oh, we can just get an icon pack. We can just eyeball the typography. I mean, we can just use the colors as it is." What advantage does having that design system give to the company in general? Is it speed? Is it consistency? Is it
Mm.
differentiation? What advantages does it give?
Yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned it. So basically, is those three things are part of it: differentiation, consistency, trust. Trust being in like it being accessible. You know, what is being read is basically what is being done. You understand? And also like speed. You know, because once you have these components ready, engineers or product teams can just like basically drag and drop, build out a page within like a week, and before you know it's already shipped because you have those components ready basically. And when it comes to like, oh, maybe a product is saying, oh, we could just use an icon pack, we could just use I bought typographer and everything. The thing is, once they start scaling, you know, you start having like four, five, six designers. Then and you start eyeballing typography, you start eyeballing color or using like an icon pack basically. You start having this dissonance. You start having like different typography skill within the product. You know, some parts of the product is going to look, they have this tiny typography, or even the header is not the same as the header in another product, in another space, and that destroys trust. You know, it looks as if, what are we doing? Is this a scam? You know, and also it doesn't like really differentiate you from the market. You understand? Doesn't differentiate you from the market, basically. And also in this era of like AI, I'm just chucking AI in there, it is very important that you try so hard to differentiate yourself from something someone can just like vibe code within within a day. You understand?
Yeah.
So basically, branding is very very essential in this moment. So uh yeah, but like the advantage of having a design system is basically it gives you speed, but also it depends on the stage in which your company is. But it gives you speed, it gives you differentiation, and it also like ensures consistency and trust. And also in some parts of the world, it avoids your products from being shut down, because if your product is inaccessible to some people, you could get sued, and that sue, if the person that sued you is quite right. There are like basically three things that could happen in the EU. Your products could be shut down. The founder or CEO can be put to jail, or they could fine you crazily heavy fees.
God, I
So,
beg.
so basically, having a design system team that's just going to take care of that, make sure everything we use, every typography on every color, every typography scale, every color match is perfect, definitely is going to be a good ROI than being sent to jail. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So for any brand designer who is looking to yeah, move into this aspect or take it more seriously, try to participate in or build more design systems, are there skills that are different from what the typical brand designer already possess in a skill set that they need to learn, or are there certain things they need to know? Like now you just talked about, I mean, you've talked about accessibility all night. The world is probably tired of you, but you know,
Yeah.
um, are there things that either knowledge based, theoretically, are there things they need to know, or skill wise, are there things a designer needs to know before starting to build design systems?
Yeah. I mean, we designers, basically, we brand designers, we basically most processes I would say is basically we get the brief or we get the strategy doc or the messaging guide. We go into designing like having art directions. From art directions, we then move into creating like the logos, the basic foundations of the brand. We extend it into like illustrations, patterns, then we give them a brand guideline. But with now, let's start thinking a little bit more about systems, which basically, okay, the first thing is performing an audit on the product itself. You know, you can still do your research about like competitors and everything, but also like performing an audit on the product itself that you are designing for, or even the website and everything. Where are those inconsistencies? How's your like new design going to scale into those places? You understand? You're not just designing in isolation of the product, but basically you're designing for the product. You understand?
Yeah.
Because also it's going to make you even more important because you are thinking about what brings them money. You're not just thinking about. I'm not saying marketing doesn't bring money, but you're thinking about the main engine that brings in that brings in the money.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
understand? Also, another thing is basically like thinking more about like accessibility. Whatever I'm designing, is it accessible? The assets I'm choosing, are they accessible? Basically, like your typography, are they accessible to the eye? Are they clean? For like a digital company, definitely. How can they scale if they are going global? Can this font or typeface be translated to diverse languages? Most people are saying, oh, most brands use Inter. The reason they are using Inter is because it could be translated to diverse languages. Basically, it could be diverse. It could be done to diverse languages, and this just like helps build consistency. So that's why you could see like most digital products using like Inter, or they build their own font stuff out. And another thing that could be useful is like basically learning how to create foundations for a design system. You understand? Because even though you're creating like the basic foundations, but also help, like thinking about how those foundations could scale. Basically, like your typography. Your typography doesn't need to end at like H3. You understand? Or doesn't need to end at body or caption. You understand?
Yeah.
There's H1 to H6. There is body large, body small, body default bold. Yes. You understand? Body default so body large bold, there's caption bold. So and all those things, those scale is going to come from your product audit. Because you look at how the product, you look at how the typography scale is used within the product, and then you could look at some of those typography and then unify them. Some that are like, they are crazy, but they are similar. Maybe someone's using 14 pixel here, someone's using 12 pixel. Why don't you just make the smallest 14 pixel body defaults? The H1 or to H6. So that's where you start picking you from, basically from the audit. That's why I started like learning the audit. Then the last thing is basically learning how to create foundations for a design system.
Great, 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 great. Yeah. So, closing question or penultimate question for me. I think one thing we haven't spoken or touched on about in the design system is motion. How
Yeah.
big of a role does motion play in the design system?
It plays quite a lot of role, and depending from where you look at it as well, because like I said, brands keep evolving and new people keep coming in. Particularly when you're working with like a digital company, a global digital company, it's basically they hire new designers, and the new designers have new ideas, and those new ideas could actually be beneficial. And when it's beneficial, it works. Other product teams are going to start like basically other product designers within a company are still going to start like making use of it, and that's where like motion can come in. Someone like, oh, you have this micro interaction. I like it. People start copying that component, or basically you are going to use motion for this like promo assets. Like a promo asset is like an asset within the product which is used for promotion. So, oh, I'm going to like make use of motion to do it. And where you can come in is basically you could do your motion, but I'm going to provide you like a general guidelines of how motion is being done within our products. You understand? So, and you give them examples, or you give them also like the transition times and everything, the easing. that is going to look good, you know. So just giving them those basic things is going to allow them to, if they want to work on something like work on their own motion, they're basically using your values. They are using your guidance. You understand? Which is good then going to allow the product to evolve. Yeah.
Okay. Um, so for many brand designers, we are sort of jack of all trades.
Yeah.
We learn multiple skills,
Mhm.
and motion in design system could be where some people may feel scared. Do you think the burden of defining the motion direction falls on the brand designer, or do you think that should be more of a teamwork where a motion designer is brought in for that part of the system?
Yeah, I mean, I would say definitely motion designer needs to be brought in. Someone with like the expertise, someone with the expertise that definitely like they know what they are doing. You understand? Because they could see some cracks. You'd want to design something that's going to stand the test of time, but also have the ability to evolve, basically. Um, and one thing I would say is like you should also know your product. Is it the right time to actually be building a motion system? You know, and how I like, can they invest into emotion system? Can they invest into like emotion designer being on the team? So that's going to help you to like develop this motion system consistently. So it depends on the stage of the product as well. But if you want to, you have to find like the best of the best to come in, look like perform an audit on like all the motion within the product, even in marketing as well, and then define like concise like guidance and context regarding it so that it could be used without him or without you when you've been there.
Yeah, great, great, great. So, a closing question would be, a piece of advice to brand designers who want to be thinking in systems.
Yeah. I would say like with every asset you design, always think about how can it scale into other parts of the products, whether it be marketing, it be like within a page of the product, and also how it could evolve basically. So those two things are going to like allow you to have like this grip on the product itself. They're going to like really find it important if you could do that. And also basically but before doing that, also be clear on the type of product or company you are actually designing for, and also like looking at their vision. You understand? Because I've talked a lot of accessibility and everything, but if your brand is not going past Nigeria or yeah, not going past Nigeria, it's not even going past Lagos. Why do you need to be thinking about accessibility? Or if it's just like if it's marketing heavy, not really product specific, it's mostly like maybe marketing agency. You don't really need to like think about like that. You just need to go wide. Do you even need design system? So it's basically being clear on the type of products or company you're basically designing for and your vision. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for enlightening us on design systems and, the nitty gritty. Is there
Mm.
anybody here who has a question for Deji before we round this up? If you have any questions, you can raise your hand so I can note takers. Okay, Bailamus, you have a question? Um, can you request to speak so I can bring you on board? Yeah, your question.
Sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you for having me on. So, I love everything you've said, but I do have a question. So, how do you think? Well, what do you think is the best approach to cope being a brand designer in house? Let's say for a fintech brand.
Yeah.
but considering the fact that the founders or the board of directors are not really design savvy and they have opinions regarding
Mm-hmm.
designs, right?
Yeah.
Take for instance where I work, yeah, we have like this bit of concern regarding design system and stuff.
Mm.
My direct CMO, for instance, though she has this knack to know like really good design, but
Yeah.
our own is still about returns and stuff. Like she doesn't really care. You
Definitely.
understand?
Definitely.
At some point there will be, like, for instance, I don't know if you've seen it or maybe Paul have seen it, but I designed the identity then, and we have this whole system and stuff that we started with, and then eventually my boss will be like, oh, we are new, nobody knows us yet, so we need to do stuff that go with this virality kind of thing. She might see
Yeah.
something from, like, let's say nairametrics now, for instance, and then she, can we use this type for this thing? Like, bro, the reason why I see some of these stuff is because they've been able to build consistency over time. If you
100%.
use this thing enough, eventually people just recognizes you with this particular style or this particular aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
But if you pick one from Carrywise today and that one from Check tomorrow, eventually it just seems like a whole collection of different stuff. What do you think is the best way to approach that as a brand designer working in house?
Mm.
Right.
Definitely. Like most CISOs don't really like care about like design. I mean, some do care, but like most don't care. They just like, yeah, returns, KPIs and shit. So like to make them see it is basically highlighting disadvantage. And one of my lead mentors, she was like, do not try to improve like the don't try to like improve like the current version. Like don't try to make it look a little bit nicer than what you are proposing. You understand? Make it look really bad. That what we are doing is bad, bad, bad. Even if you can make it better, you know. But basically, it's like what you could do now is okay. Perform an audit of like, oh, everything we've done so far, and present it. Okay, does this look like a unified brand? You know, because we are here, there, and here tomorrow, we are taking from this, taking from that, but we are not building equity. People don't really, we are not building brand equity. People don't really know us. You could also like perform a survey, even without their consent, to be able to like understand, for them to be able to like see the problem itself. And then maybe when something like that come like, oh, there's this cool concept from maybe career wise or this is basically telling them, okay, how can we design this in our style? You understand? Because one thing I tell some like clients that come meet me that say, oh, this make my design like Apple, or I want to be like Airbnb, or make my design like this. So I was like, then if I make a design that is going to look like Apple for you, or I make a design that's going to look like a particular company for you, then which company are going to say make my design like you? You understand? Make my design like the company I'm designing for, basically. Because I'm trying to create like a point of differentiation whereby also other people can also like take concepts from basically your own brand. And that's when like it does on them and I try to go into my own like groove. So it's basically like okay, highlighting the disadvantage of what you are currently doing, even though some might go viral, but the thing is firstly, we have to start building brand equity. And also is I mean you can't just tell your saying, well, I'm not going to do it because it doesn't work with the brand. Unless you want to get sacked. Is basically also applying knowledge is oh, okay, we are going to do this thing, but we can do it in our own style. You understand? And then showing them the style, showing them we could use our typographic style, we could do it basically the same concept. It's basically social media. Basically the same art direction, but it's using our assets, basically. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. Absolutely, it does.
Yeah.
Right. I have one more question here. So I've seen a lot of your work, right? And again, occasionally I just go back to kind of see, your thought process and stuff. But I want you to basically just say it now, in a way like maybe a more profound explanation to it. How do you approach system and in a way that it actually scales and it's unique? Emphasis on the unique, because take for instance now in the fintech industry
Yeah.
there's always this thing where people are approached, and I did too. And this was even before I knew, because again, before this Cowrie Wise thing, I actually know the inspiration behind the logo because I read the case study.
Yeah.
But behind the pattern itself, I couldn't even figure out how she was able to kind of, do the whole pattern thing. And then eventually we jumped on a call one day like that, and he explained to me it's actually like power clipping. Basically, they just have like this asset that they power clip and stuff, and it's inspired by this whole Naira thing and stuff. And before me even knowing what that is, I'd actually designed a system for this same brand I'm referencing that I work with, where we have like these old star motifs things, taking inspiration from the Naira note, and then this whole line pattern thing. They have this
Yeah.
term for it, but I've forgotten, right? So in a way, it kind of feels like this one and that one feels the same thing. Or even take for instance now, there is this new project from Owo now, for instance.
Yeah.
This illustration thing, I feel like for me personally, that's the highlight of the project and the font. I
Yeah.
really, really love that illustration.
Yeah.
And that's because I've actually seen it somewhere before. It was on a brand new review for a food brand. I think it's in the US. I think it's called Good Mother or something.
Yeah.
They have the
That's
same, yeah, the same
kind of stuff.
illustration pack in a way.
Yeah.
And these people might have been thinking differently here. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you create something in a way that somebody in the US doesn't feel like, oh, you're ripping me off in a way? I know that's difficult,
Yeah.
but for some weird reason, I've seen your work, but it kind of feels like you've been able to kind of
Uh,
navigate that particular thing. So I want
yeah.
to know, what's the thought process like? How do you do that? Do you make research on other people's system? Which is weird in a way because you can never really know
Yeah.
anything. You can drop a project today, somebody drops another one tomorrow, and there's this similarity. And then
Mm.
you'll be like this font they are using now.
Yes.
I actually used it yesterday for this jersey thing I'm working on. I was
Mm.
just searching something online and I saw it because I was looking for a font that's similar to, is it
Mm.
Grasshouse Grotesque or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I saw it and it was also free. Funny enough, I saw it this morning again from the project. So yeah, it's crazy. I want to know what you think about, navigating that particular
Yeah.
crossroad.
I mean, I think one thing I keep like even what's his name? Uh Paul knows as well. Like I'm a big fan of uniqueness, you know, and being unique doesn't mean I can't like move or steal stuff from that brand. You understand? But it's about like, okay, how can I steal it but use it in another form, basically? Because all these things are basically like art directions, and the things that like you see that like caters towards like crazy like art directions, brand art directions are like typographic color, and those like illustration assets, patterns and everything. And once you understand that is okay, there's this type of like let's go to illustration, which is really one of the easiest. No, there's this type of illustration I want to do. Maybe I want to make like 3D. How can I be different? You understand? Even though you've put inspirations from some things of the brand, maybe I want to use like this hexagon within the identity and use it to create like 3D illustrations. But also everyone is creating the same thing. Okay, what is that thing? It's like daring yourselves to like say, okay, what is that thing people are scared to do, which seems quite difficult. You understand? And that's where you start having like these crazy, crazy ideas, you know. For instance, for augment, I was like, how can we highlight a black illustration on a black background? And that's where we started playing with like lightning. Yeah, lighting within the illustration, you know. So like and yeah, that's where like, oh, we could use lightning, we could change the material as well to be able to stand out. So those are like some elements within the illustration. So it's basically like I like knowing those elements within each facet of like the the assets you are giving out. Basically the typographies, the colors, the icons, the what's the name? The patterns. And with icons itself, that's another place you could also like own in on the other on like the direction as well. Oh, okay, should I use a single line? Should I use like a dual tone? Should I use so it's based and also the thing is understanding the types, you know. Definitely everyone understand the types of typography, everyone understand like colors, but like oh, what of like illustrations? You know, illustrations you have 3D, you have 3D. There is this new one that is being done now, which is it's not new quite per se. It's basically like rendering 3D assets as if they are 2D. So uh how can I mix and match basically those things to create something new? You understand? So it's basically you don't need to like, oh, I need to come up with something new from my head. Nah, it's basically oh, drawing inspiration from these things, bringing them together. Like I could take the old illustration, which is freaking cool, and I could take something else, and I could say, oh, okay, let's say I want to create. maybe 3D illustration, I could use like the lines used for within the whole illustration, match it with it, make out something. I know what I'm saying doesn't make sense now. Basically, just mixing and matching here and there to create something new and something unique. And just like daring yourself to like everyone is doing this thing. Okay, why are people not using this thing? You understand? Like even though it's being popular right now, is like pink within fintech. I mean, it's already big. It's becoming popular because people are using blue. If you could remember back then, like, oh, why are people not using? People are using blue and purple. Oh, why are people not using pink? With augments, I was like, can I design something that is black and white, basically? With this HQ, I was like, the tone of voice. How can I through the tone of voice? How can I own in on the tone of voice of like how do I put it, of how your mother speak to you. They care about you, but sometimes they speak in a nonchalant way. Like be sorry me now. You know those two your bad mothers, you ask them or something. Where should I put this? Put it on my head. Basically, you understand? But it doesn't mean they don't care about you. So I was like, oh, okay. How can I put this within the brand as well? And it's just basically thinking about what can make what the brand I'm designing for be different within their industry. Something that was, I think, Ragged Days have talked about is when they were designing wise quite a lot, is they took almost all the fintechs, all their competitors, and put them on like a last slide within the C suits in like a big office. They blasted it on a large screen, and they told them pick wise, pick wise from from the picture, and because they were using blue, almost every fintech were blue and this and that. It was quite difficult for them to pick. So when they made it rebrand to like green, it was so easy to sell. You understand? So basically, just like looking for that point of differentiation and just going into it and mixing and matching, basically.
Great. Thank you, guys. Does anybody have any other question before we wrap this up? Okay, in the absence of any question, thank you guys for joining. Thank you for giving us your time. I'm pretty sure most of you are single because the doubled ones will probably be at dinner right now or doing Netflix and chill. But thank you guys for joining us. The recording today will be available on Glyn's X account and on YouTube, so you can always find it to reference to listen again. But yeah, thank you guys for giving us your time, and I hope you enjoy the conversation. The next Glean Space would be on the, I think, 26th, I think, the last Friday of the month, and we'll be speaking with let me get her name. Sorry, 1 second. Yeah, she's not popular in our space, but we'll be speaking with Sky Antonio. Yeah, definitely. On the business aspects of design. Um, 1 sec. Yeah. And we'll be talking about building a creative business that actually works, finding your sustainable model in the creative space. She's somebody who, you know, has been helping design agencies and design founders build their studios, scale their agencies, and we'll be tapping from our wealth of knowledge on the last Friday of the month. So we'll put out the poster soon. And then I hope to see you guys there. So thank you very much. If you guys learned anything from here, please